Okay, so we have a snow day tomorrow, and that means that I need to explain to you all the lesson for today because I think you're going to need an explanation rather than just posting something on Google Classroom. So, okay, I'm going to try to make this brief because I know you're more likely to watch the video in its entirety if I don't make it long. So, first, what I need you to do is go to Google Classroom for what posted and pull up these items. There's one that says in-text citations using power verbs. It doesn't say example right there, but it says all this other stuff. So get that item and get this item, which is rhetorically accurate power verbs. All right, so this assignment goes with the piece Black Men in Public Space. So before you do anything on this, you're going to need to read Black Men in Public Space, annotate it, highlight it for rhetoric, just like we always do with the pieces that we read. So I'm going to give you an example for how to do this assignment that you have in front of you through using Florence Kelly's speech at the Women's Suffrage Association. So you just got done writing a rhetorical analysis about this, so it should be pretty fresh on your mind. All right, so here's what you do. There are basically 3 ways that you can analyze in an essay. I'm calling them analysis type 1, analysis type 2, and analysis type 3. Now, this first one is a paraphrase or a summarizing. This is when you don't really have one particular small quote to reference. It's really like a collection of a bunch of them. And to use a really long quote would be not effective because the quote would be too long for your paper. Most of the words in the essay need to come from you. And even if you cite it correctly with quotation marks around it, you still should never have a very long quote. So on the Florence Kelly essay, I picked everything here that's in the yellow highlight. So if you remember from this piece, Florence Kelly cites a bunch of these different states that basically don't have very many laws protecting children and child labor. It mentions Alabama, how they do have a law that limit children under the age of 16. They can't work in a cotton mill at night longer than 8 hours, but that's pretty crappy because it's still, 8 hours, and that's pretty much the night. So anyway, this is a big deal because she makes these allusions to these various states, but there's not one particular quote that is particularly good to use to prove that point. So analysis type 1 would actually be a really good type for this. So what you do in this first column is you put what is the belief or the assertion, like what's the argument that the author's trying to make. And what Florence Kelly is trying to do is she's trying to point out that child labor is a widespread problem across America. The evidence, which is here in paraphrase or summary, is this. Kelly exposes Georgia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, the Carolinas, and Alabama as specific examples of states that have little to no restrictions on the hours and conditions in which young children can work. Now, again, that's evidence. I'm not citing an exact quote because it's kind of like all throughout these first, 6 or 7 paragraphs. So I'm going to cite it appropriately as a paraphrase. Now, here's where we get to the power verbs. Now, over here, you're going to see here, I've underlined the power verbs. Instead of saying says or writes all the time, one of the ways that you can improve your writing, build to that sophistication, and then beyond that, honestly, for college papers, to just elevate your writing style, one of the ways to do that is to utilize power verbs. So what you have here is kind of the analysis or the commentary using the power verbs. So again, if my belief or assertion is child labor is a widespread problem across America, that's what Kelly's trying to point out. The evidence is that she cites all of these different states. Here is where I analyze it. It says Kelly's allusions to these states and their limited or non-existent laws protecting children in the workplace serves to vilify policymakers and residents of these states, shaming anyone who sits idly by while the tragic exploitation of children is able to take place. So, one thing I want to tell you about power verbs is this. Every time I write a paper or I do one of these examples for you all, one of the ways, sometimes I don't exactly know what I'm going to say to analyze it. I know that there's something important there, but I don't exactly know what I'm going to say. So sometimes a strategy to help guide you to the analysis is to pick a really good power verb. So if you look and you go, okay, what exactly is Florence Kelly doing? Is she forcing us? Is she minimizing something? Is she, I don't know, elevating her argument? Is she highlighting a problem? Is she outlining the ways that her audience can be involved? Is she condemning? So like all of these words, and you can't use them interchangeably. It's just like you can't use a thesaurus interchangeably. Like not all words are equal and mean the same thing as said. These are very nuanced, different meanings of the words. But I feel like sometimes what you can do is really take a good look at this power verbs list, and picking a word can help you arrive at good analysis. So I looked at the list and I said it vilifies and shames, which is very targeted to what Kelly is doing. And by picking those verbs, it actually helped me to say something of more substance. Okay, analysis type 2. This is a direct quote. This is what you're used to. You know this. So what you do is you write the direct quote over here. And then on this side, using a power verb, you incorporate the quote into your sentence. Again, this is the one that you're most familiar with. So let's read. It says, when Kelly poses the rhetorical question, if mothers and teachers in Georgia could vote, would the Georgia legislature have refused change at every session for the last 3 years? She provokes her audience at the National American Woman Suffrage Association to action. Kelly sees the issues of the exploitation of children and the women's right to vote as connected. So here, by picking power verbs, it guides you to more in-depth analysis and gives you something of more substance and content to say. All right, this one back here, it is analysis type 3. And it's when you identify something that is a cause and then something that is an effect. Now, we're working right now on the cause and effect rhetorical mode. The best way for me to explain this is just to give you the example. Okay, so Kelly she explains, tonight while we sleep, several thousand little girls will be working in the textile mills all night through, spinning and weaving silks and ribbons for us to buy. So this is the cause. The effect of that on the audience is the audience of mothers becomes afflicted with guilt as they imagine these poor young girls whose childhood innocence is being stolen while the adults stand by and permit it to happen. So what you would literally do in your essay is you would have this written first, this written second, and then over here is commentary or explanation. So here it says Kelly's imagery, because I feel like this is imagery here, when I can envision the little girls, the thousands of little girls working in textile mills all night, spinning and weaving. So this use of imagery. Kelly's imagery juxtaposes the horrors that young children face against the security that adulthood brings. Through her passion and indignation, Kelly condemns complacency and urges her listeners to advocate for the children who don't have the power or the voice to do so themselves. Okay, so I'm going to provide this example for you and post it on Google Classroom so that you can refer to it. But what your task is to do is read Black Men in Public Space. It's a pretty powerful piece. And then go ahead and perform these tasks with that piece in mind. Before I let you go, I want to explain here over here. This is almost a template that you can use, and I forgot to tell you about it. So if you say the, and then I didn't say the word the, but I used Kelly's allusions into place. And then you insert the proof statement. So Kelly's allusions to these states and their limited or non-existent laws protecting children in the workplace. So that's the proof. And then you use the words serve to or serves to, and that's right there. And then you put the power verb, that's the power verb right there, which, and then you explain further explanation of like what that text support or what that proof statement does. Okay, hopefully this helps. I will be available through email if you want to ask me questions. I'm even willing to work with anyone if you want to pop in the Google Meet. So just let me know if you have any questions.